Hello and glad you can join us. Here's what's happening: a fatal shooting at Canada's busiest airport.
One of the individuals produced a firearm at our officers.
A man dead and police under investigation.
Yes or no, did Mr. Trump bring up the 51st date in his call with you?
I said that he did.
Mark Carney confronted over his first phone call with Donald Trump.
We came just for the Pope now at the moment, to see the Pope.
Plus paying respect by the thousands.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
It's not quite back to normal at Canada's busiest airport after a shooting this morning involving police that had passengers running for cover. In the end, one man is dead. The Police Special Investigations Unit is looking into exactly what happened. CTV's Allison Hurst is at Pearson International and brings us up to date.
Dozens of Peel police cars block the road outside departures at Toronto Pearson International Airport Terminal 1 as officers work to save the life of a 30-year-old man who was shot by police.
And we're crossing the crosswalk outdoors, and we heard something to the effect of 8 to 10 loud popping noises.
It happened just before 7 a.m. 3 officers were responding to a dispute between a group of adults all known to each other. Peel police say the officers tried to de-escalate the situation until a man pulled out a firearm.
3 officers did respond, but 2 officers were involved in the critical incident, so discharging their firearms. So the 2 officers are really the subject officers as designated by the SIU.
The man was pronounced dead on scene. None of the officers were injured. Ontario's Special Investigations Unit, the province's police watchdog, has been assigned to the case. They say the man was in distress and did not fire his gun.
Our officers spent an amount of time trying to resolve the dispute, an immense amount of de-escalation and engagement with the parties.
The incident causing a mess for travelers as they tried to enter the airport, including a crew from CTV National News covering the election.
Huge traffic jam of cars, of passengers trying to get dropped off, trying to make their flights.
Police blocked access to departures and were rerouting cars to the arrivals area instead.
What we saw were officers basically assisting passengers, leading them up the rampway to get into the airport so they can make their flights.
According to Pearson Airport, flights were not impacted, but all travelers were required to enter and exit by Terminal 1 arrivals while investigators were on scene. Peel police say this incident had nothing to do with the airport and that there's no threat to public safety or critical infrastructure. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Allison Hurst. Today's shooting, as we said, is now in the hands of Toronto's SIU. CTV's Heather Wright looks at what that investigation will involve, rather. Okay, Heather.
Well, Sandy, this being an airport means there is security footage from multiple angles, which investigators are going through. We also know from the SIU that at least one of the officers was wearing a body camera, things that will shed more light into what happened earlier today.
The SIU says the investigation is still early. 3 officers were involved, 2 opened fire, but how many shots and what led to a distress call turning deadly are among the many questions.
I don't have much information on the initial call. The information I do have is that it was a man in distress that was at the airport in this vehicle outside on the departures level.
Police say they tried to calm the situation when they arrived on scene, where some sort of argument between a group of people was taking place. Investigators say the situation changed quickly when the man got out of the car and had a gun.
It was a short amount of time and there were some conversations happening. And then in the course of that, the man is believed to have produced a firearm, and then subsequently the 2 police officers responded by shooting.
It's not clear how much time passed between the man pulling out a gun and the officers opening fire, but experts say it's typically not long.
They could very quickly go from holding it to pointing it and pulling the trigger, less than a second. And so they really aren't going to waste a lot of time unless they can get behind solid cover to protect them from being shot. They're not going to waste a lot of time before they actually exchange gunfire.
Chris Lewis says there is always scrutiny around use of force incidents involving police, especially when someone is killed. This morning's shooting comes less than a week after a 16-year-old was shot by police in Toronto. The SIU says in that case it appears the teenager opened fire on officers during a traffic stop and the officers shot back. He died in hospital 2 days later.
The SIU says they have not yet examined the gun of the man killed, but they say early reports indicate he did not fire it. Sandy.
All right, Heather, thank you. Court resumed in the sexual assault trial of 5 World Junior hockey players, but the day was mired in legal arguments. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is in London, Ontario. And Adrian, talk to us about this and the implications.
Sandy, so far today, the jury has yet to enter the courtroom. Each of the former Team Canada gold medal winning teammates walked into court this morning. Though so far today, the trial has been tied up in legal arguments, the details of which we're not allowed to share because the jury wasn't in the courtroom. What we can say is that yesterday afternoon, the jury was dismissed early. Justice Maria Caracia told them that something had happened over the lunch hour that she needed to think about and discuss with the lawyers. She also asked the jury not to speak to each other about what may have happened over the lunch break. This all took place shortly after Crown Prosecutor Heather Donkers made her opening arguments on Wednesday by painting, quote, a roadmap of events that will be challenged during this trial. The jury will hear that the alleged victim, who we can only identify as EM, drank approximately 8 drinks on the evening of June 18, 2018, when she met some members of the World Junior team at this London, Ontario bar. She then went back to this hotel with Michael McLeod and had consensual sex. Though following intercourse, the Crown says McLeod sent a group text message inviting teammates to the room. The Crown has told the jury that Mr. McLeod went into the hallway and invited people into his room, where EM still lay, naked, under the covers of the bed. Before long, more and more men began arriving in room 209. It's important to note that these are the Crown's allegations, each charged with sexual assault. Former team captain Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Carter Hart McLeod, and Alex Fermenton have pleaded not guilty. It's believed the jury won't be back in court until tomorrow. Sandy.
CTV's Adrian Gobriel. The U.S. president has once again inserted himself into Canada's election campaign by raising the specter of the 51st state. On the Liberal campaign trail, questions were asked about that and what really was said during that friendly phone call between Donald Trump and Mark Carney back in March. CTV's senior political correspondent Mike Couture is with the Liberals. And Mike, talk us through what this is all about.
Well, Sandy, 4 weeks ago, the Liberal leader said the U.S. president respected Canada's sovereignty in private conversation and in public comments. However, today we learned in that March 28th call with Donald Trump, the American leader did bring up the specter of Canada becoming the 51st state.
I said that he did. I said that he did.
Carney was not that clear when asked about it immediately after the call with Trump. Now, Trump's threat on our sovereignty has been one of the main issues of this campaign as party leaders try to convince Canadians who could be the best person to sit across the table from the U.S. president. Yesterday, Trump spoke about his relationship with Carney.
He was very, very nice, I will say. Very nice. We had a couple of very nice conversations, very good, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to get involved in their election.
Asked why he wasn't this clear on March 28th after their call, Carney claimed he had been.
But then the question is, what's going to be done with it? And does he understand where we stand, but more particularly where I stand? He is under no illusions. Never, absolutely not, never. Move on.
Carney said he and Trump agreed that any negotiations have to be serious ones between two sovereign nations and not some photo op at the president's Florida estate in Mar-a-Lago. Sandy?
Mike Couture. Now, the Conservatives made some more announcements today as Pierre Poilievre spent time in what's turning out to be battleground Atlantic Canada. CTV's Abigail Beeman is traveling with the Conservatives.
On his first campaign visit to Nova Scotia during the last days before the election, Pierre Poilievre is promising to get rid of the electric vehicle mandate from the Trudeau Liberal government, which aimed to phase out gas-powered vehicles.
A new Conservative government will axe the Carney tax. Conservatives will put you back in the driver's seat for a change.
But the latest Nanos polling does not put the Conservatives in the driver's seat in Atlantic Canada, with no indication they'll pick up new seats.
The Conservative campaign in Atlantic Canada has fallen flat.
Fears around Donald Trump and tariffs have given the Liberals a boost in the polls this campaign. But this local Conservative candidate is confident, saying he's not hearing about Trump anymore at the doors.
I was 3 weeks ago, but that seems to have disappeared, and people have moved back on to mainly cost of living issues.
While a local Conservative campaign source is more worried, telling CTV News they are hearing about Poilievre at the doors as a reason not to vote Conservative.
That's what I like about Pierre. He's a patriot, and he'll work hard for all of us.
At a rally in the former Conservative stronghold of both Elmer and Peter MacKay, held since 2015 by Liberal Sean Fraser, the father and son duo of former and well-known government ministers endorsed Poilievre Wednesday night.
Changing the conductor won't change the music. We need a whole new orchestra in Canada.
I think it's a good move for the Conservatives to bring out Peter MacKay. My biggest question would be, why was he not out in the campaign from the beginning? Why was he not actively stumping for the party and promoting Pierre Poilievre right from the get-go?
And for the first time, according to internal polling from the Ontario Progressive Conservatives viewed by CTV News, it looks like winning Poilievre's own seat back in Ottawa is not a given. Sandy?
Abigail, thank you. The NDP is fighting to save existing seats on Election Day as polling shows the party at its lowest level of the campaign so far. CTV's Rachel Aiello is with the NDP in Winnipeg with the details of an exchange she had with leader Jagmeet Singh.
Yes, Andy. Today, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh sought to keep up his fight to hold on to progressive support. But with the Liberals now coming after swing voters on the left in their final ad of the campaign, the punches keep coming for the NDP.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Singh started his day reviving his pledge to protect Canadian resources, rights, and public health care in any trade talks with Donald Trump. But then, when reporters sought to press him on whether he'll be around to hold the government's feet to the fire on the file, Singh seemed to get a bit swept up by supporters chanting his name.
I would like to ask my question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The
We're
Liberals,
just having a good time here, you know?
I see that. Happy for you. The Liberals' final ad of the election dropped this morning, and a source tells CTV News the aim is to show a more progressive side of Mark Carney in an effort to target NDP and Green swing voters. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that we're seeing more and more people that are worried about Mark Carney's cuts. And so they're trying to hide from that.
In the final days of the federal election, the NDP have been trying to rally progressives around the fear of a Carney majority. Whether it's working will be made clear in just 4 days. The NDP campaign is now heading to Toronto, but not long after Singh takes off, Carney's campaign will be touching down here in Winnipeg. Sandy?
All right, Rachel Aiello. Time to bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Capellas. Okay, Vashi, let's go back to Mark Carney and his March conversation with the U.S. president, where Donald Trump raised the topic of Canada's annexation. I want your thoughts on Mr. Carney's explanation as to why he didn't reveal that until press today.
Well, I thought it was interesting that he was pressed ultimately to come up with an answer to repeated questions on the subject. I understand the pushback that, is this something that's happening at the margins? Is it really all that salient of a difference in one respect? But on the other hand, I do also understand why reporters were pushing Mr. Carney. This has been the central thesis, the central pitch of his campaign to voters, that he is, in his view and the Liberal Party's view, best suited to navigate the threat that Donald Trump poses to Canada. If, in fact, it wasn't him that convinced Donald Trump to recognize our sovereignty, because let's be clear, he and the party took credit for that change of tune from Donald Trump. If, in fact, that wasn't the case, and it wasn't exactly as they presented to voters, that is salient to Canadians, I think, particularly when the pitch from Liberals is, we're best to navigate this, guys. So it was an interesting development, and I thought the pushback from Mr. Carney was certainly telling as well.
Okay.
Sandy?
Vashi, thanks so much. And we will be right back. An Ontario judge has given Hudson's Bay permission to start preparing to auction off thousands of pieces of art and historical artifacts, a day after the company announced plans to liquidate its 6 remaining stores. The artifacts include the 355-year-old Royal Charter, which launched the company and is considered a significant historical document. Some Indigenous groups and historians had argued an auction could allow items of public importance to fall into private hands. Not as old as Hudson's Bay, but Labrador City, first settled in the 1960s, is a mining town that produces iron ore shipped around the world. The city now dealing with economic issues. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth traveled there to hear what locals want from political leaders.
In Labrador City, there are 2 seasons, winter and summer. Dave Hurley says the vibe is always warm.
We are social beings.
It's also a thriving mining area with 5 companies serving as major employers.
We are the backbone of the iron ore industry in Canada.
Hurley believes the iron ore supply chain is built to survive the ongoing trade war.
It's tariff-proof in regards to people want it, regardless of what it costs.
Labrador City features different opinions on the pressing issues in this election campaign.
A lot of people who end up leaving here, that's why, because of lack of doctors.
Probably just seeing the unfriendliness of politics recently, like how things can't be settled the way they seem to have used to be settled.
Mohit Gupta immigrated from India 14 years ago and has one concern that trumps all others.
The biggest problem is housing here.
Around 9,000 people live here, and because of the mining industry, this area has become a destination for skilled workers and is poised for growth. But people who live here say a lack of infrastructure is a major problem, which makes growth impossible.
We don't want to be a mining town where we have fly in, fly out, and that's what we've become. What we want to become is just a town with a mine, but we also have government buildings, expansion on our hospitals and our long-term care.
Mayor Belinda Adams says federal support is needed at a time when only 11 hospital beds are designated for seniors' care.
Other than that, we don't have any housing for our seniors.
According to Adams, overall, only 160 new homes have been built in the past 20 years.
We lack the availability of a builder to come in and build these homes.
Big picture, Hurley says Western Labrador's mining industry is a major contributor to Canada's economy, and these problems are worth improving with federal assistance.
We need the support in terms of funding and resources.
Hurley promises it would enhance the overall quality of life in this northern town. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Labrador City.
A Quebec Superior Court judge has overturned the government's tuition hike for out-of-province students. It's a win for McGill and Concordia universities, who challenged the 33% increase last fall. The Legault government said the measures were to protect the French language. Same issue at play as the Montreal Canadiens try to advance in the NHL playoffs. Montreal's transit agency says it had to switch the Go Habs Go signs on buses to Allez Canadien Allez after a complaint about the English word go. Several Quebec politicians, including members of the Parti Québécois, don't agree and want the classic chant kept.
It's like insanely exciting.
He's the best player in the world.
It's kind of special to see him.
I've always dreamed of watching Messi play.
And Messi Mania is taking over Vancouver. Global soccer superstar Lionel Messi is in the city for a match against the Whitecaps. More than 54,000 fans are expected to pack BC Place. And we'll be right back. Don't go away. Donald Trump says both Ukraine and Russia want to make a deal to end the war, but he also offered some rare criticism of Vladimir Putin.
We're in the midst of talking peace and missiles were fired, and I was not happy with it. That's what I meant.
On True Social, Donald Trump posted, "Vladimir, stop." In response to Russian strikes overnight, Russia launched a devastating bombardment on major cities in Ukraine, including the capital, Kyiv. At least 12 people were killed. And a man has been arrested in connection to the wildfire that's been tearing through parts of New Jersey. A 19-year-old faces multiple arson charges. Police believe he started a bonfire and then left before it was properly extinguished. The fire has grown to nearly 60 square kilometers. After the break, 90,000 and counting bid farewell to Pope Francis. A second day of public mourning for Pope Francis, the Vatican extending viewing hours because of the sheer numbers lining up to pay their respects. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin is at Vatican City, and Jen, it must be quite something to see, and for many there, so emotional.
Yes, Sandy, day and night, people have been moving through to get through the front doors of St. Peter's Basilica. For each person filing past the casket of the People's Pope, a story, a connection. A reason to want to capture this moment in history. Many are tourists turned pilgrims.
I think that in the first place, how lucky we are to be able to see this, because how many people in the world would like to be, and they are not here.
I was very, very emotional. I didn't think I'd cry, but when I saw him, I did. I started to cry.
My daughter seen the Pope, and even 2 years ago we met the Pope in Budapest by person, and now we wanted to come. We are on a cruise now, on a cruise, and we came just for the Pope.
Around 3,000 pilgrims move through the silence of the Basilica each hour. And with the Pope's family members seated near the casket, soccer players came to offer their prayers. The Pope, a well-known fan of the beautiful game. Cardinals summoned from around the world also continue to converge onto the Vatican. 113 had arrived by morning when a meeting was held in a hall next to the Basilica. Vatican analyst Gerardo Collin says they're discussing final details on preparations for Saturday's funeral, but also plans for the conclave to elect the new pope.
They have chosen a 90-year-old preacher of the papal household, Father Cantalamessa, and now a cardinal, to give the talk inside in the conclave. And that's an interesting thing, because he kind of sets the tone.
But for now, the traditions and rituals of mourning continue. A document detailing the Pope's life and coins will be placed in his casket before it's closed for burial. The sealing of the casket is scheduled for Friday night, and crowds are expected until then. Sandy.
All right, Jen, thank you so much. And as the world's 1.4 billion Catholics mourn the passing of the Pope, we want to leave you with images from Auschwitz in Poland, where thousands gathered on Holocaust Memorial Day, Yom HaShoah, to remember the 6 million Jews lost in the Second World War and also the victims of the October 7 massacre. I'm Sandy Rinaldo.